All right, welcome and to how to harness the power of your nervous system to crush procrastination. This is a Be Your Own Best Coach program where we create programs to accelerate your career with self-leadership skills and habits. I'm Glenn Lubert. I'm one of the co-founders of Be Your Own Best Coach, and I'm once again here with my colleague, Dr. Deborah Teplow. Hi, Deborah.
Hello.
So we're going to start off, we like to start off our sessions with a bit of a breathing exercise to help land us here, a state change to land us here where we are. So we're going to begin with that. So I invite you to put your feet firmly flat on the ground and sit upright in a dignified posture. Put your hands on your thighs. Put your palms facing down. I invite you to put them facing down for grounding or facing up for uplifting, depending on what state you're in right now, how you want to shift. And I invite you to close your eyes. Notice your breath. So we're going to do a series of breathing where we're going to breathe in for 3 seconds. We're going to then hold it for 3 seconds. Then we're going to, or 4 seconds, sorry. And then we're going to exhale for 8 seconds and hold it for 4 seconds. So that's 4, 4, 4, 8. And we're going to repeat that twice. So let's begin with breathing in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 2, 3, 4. Then exhale through the nose. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And hold 2, 3, 4. Inhale through the nose. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 2, 3. And exhale. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and hold 2, 3, 4. And now back to just regular breathing. We're going to roll out your neck. Relax your shoulders. When you're ready, I invite you to open up your eyes back up. And welcome back. So if you have any questions during the session, go ahead and put them in the chat and put a little cue around them so that they stand out in the chat so we can see them. Sorry, get this. Got so many windows going on here to operate this piece. You have to jump around. Yeah, so here we go. Just put a question in like that. And then let's get started. I'm going to get these slides up here for us again. And Deborah, you want to take us on the crucial concepts for today's session?
Sure, I'll take it away. So welcome. We're so glad to be working with you today and sharing. So the title of our workshop today is How to Harness the Power of Your Nervous System to Crush Procrastination. And everything we do from the moment we're born till we die is a function of what's happening in our nervous system. So when we talk about nervous system, we mean the brain, the spinal cord, and all the nerves that connect every part of the body to every other part of the body and then to the brain. And the nervous system transmits signals to and from the different parts of the body and works in tandem with our endocrine system, our hormones, so to respond to those signals that it is getting. The actions triggered by the nervous system in response to various stimuli can be obvious, like sweating or trembling, or they can be subtle, even the slightest change in your heart rate. And as Robert Unger, a world-renowned biologist or biological anthropologist and evolutionary psychologist, says, behavior is a result of an animal interacting with stimuli in its surroundings. So all animals have nervous systems, but what distinguishes us humans from all our cousins out there is that we can harness the power of our nervous systems to regulate our reactions to the stimuli and to inform our decisions that we make about the actions we take. And that includes how we react to tasks that we tend to procrastinate on. So here's a quote from Edward de Bono, who is was a physician, psychologist, author, inventor, and broadcaster. And he invented a term I had heard of, lateral thinking, and was a proponent of teaching thinking as a subject in schools. I wish it were still being done, but whatever. And we like this quote to introduce the idea that common sense solutions such as time management, SMART goals, or accountability partners may not be enough to help you crush procrastination because they don't address the many factors that do influence behavior, nor the specific drivers that spell the difference between on-time performance and procrastination. Those things like SMART goals and accountability partners, even second brain, can be simplistic in the face of the challenge of procrastination, which has a lot of moving parts. And so we want to encourage you not to mistake simple for simplistic. So think of simple and or simplicity as elegantly efficient and effective solution to challenging problems, whereas simplistic means treating a problem in a way that omits, ignores, overlooks, or minimizes crucial and possibly complicating factors or
Deborah, you muted yourself.
Okay, sorry. I'm so sorry. Thanks for the warning. And the reason, so when we confuse simplistic with simple, that's why we're often unsuccessful with addressing our procrastination because we think, we found the solution with this app or this technique or whatever. And it's simplistic rather than simple, an effective, elegantly effective and efficient way to address the situation. So let's go on. So this is a quote we found on Pinterest, and we actually don't agree with this 100%, but it does reflect a critical concept. Your behavior is shaped, amplified, or constrained not only by what's inside of you, but by the people around you, the setting and places in which you work and live, and the external objects, the things around you. So one big myth about procrastination is that all you need is more motivation, self-discipline, self-control, or grit. And you can have all of that up the wazoo and still fail to get started on a task, buckle down, or work at a pace that delivers on-time results without being overwhelmed with stress, anxiety, fear, and dread, all the stuff associated with procrastination. So one important lesson when it comes to crushing procrastination is to be able to accurately assess, evaluate, and then make decisions based on how all those factors help you do what you want to do.
All right, let's put that a little bit into some practice or exercise here. And I'm gonna ask you to we're gonna get out a piece of paper and a pen or open up a note in your note-taking app. And we're going to do a short assessment where you're going to talk about what kinds of things drive you to procrastinate. You're going to think about this. And what is your particular procrastination pattern or habit? So we're going to ask a series of questions and you're going to add up the numbers to these. And then we're going to give you a little assessment of where you are in the procrastination scale. So I just dropped in the chat the question that we're going to be asking you is through different series of 9 questions. I think we have.
Yeah, 9 questions.
And we're using a Likert scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being this happens very seldom, and 5 is where it's happening very often. So you just jot it down on a piece of paper, or again, you can put it in your note-taking app. But you're going to want to calculate the score when we get to the end. So we're going to start the first one here. I delay tasks beyond what is reasonable. 1 being very seldom, 5 being very often. Just as fast as I can copy and paste these. And number 2, I do everything when I believe it needs to be done. One very seldom, 5 very often. Okay. Number 3, I often regret not getting to tasks sooner. All right. Number 4, there are aspects of my life that I put off, though I know I shouldn't. Again, 1 very seldom, 5 very often. Right, the next one. If there is something I should do, I get to it before attending to lesser tasks. All right, number 6. I put things off so long that my well-being or efficiency unnecessarily suffers. 1 very seldom, 5 very often. And number 7. At the end of the day, I know I could have spent the time better. Number 8. I spend my time wisely.
Glad, let me interrupt in this. There are a couple that need to be scored the opposite. This is one of them. I spend my time wisely. Again, 5 is very often, 1 is very seldom. I think that's okay. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it all works out, yeah.
Okay, good.
And this is the last one. When I should be doing one thing, I will do another.
Yeah.
1 very seldom, 5 very often. I mean, that's a pretty good one. When I should be doing one thing, I watch Netflix. So take a moment now and just add up your scores. And you're going to keep that number. And Deborah, you're going to show it, talk to us about how these scores compare to everybody else in the world.
Okay. So, let's see. I want to be asked. I'll just share with you. Okay. So, how are you as a procrastinator? Are you world-class procrastinator, or where do you stack up related to everybody else in the world? If you're 24, if your scores add up to 24, between 24 and 31, you're in the middle of the pack. You're an average procrastinator. If you're 32 to 36, you're getting to be more of a procrastinator. You're in the top 10 to 25%. If you score 37 or more, you're in the top 10% of procrastinators, and tomorrow is your middle name. Now, if you score between 20 and 23, you're not that hot shot as procrastinating. You're in the bottom 10 to 25%. And if you score 19 or less, you're in the bottom 10%. And you could think to yourself, your mantra is first things first. And some people even say, "Oh, I don't procrastinate. I precrastinate." So that's where you're at.
All right, great. So if you want to drop in the chat, it's fun to see where you scored on the numbers. But if someone wants to unmute or raise their hand and talk about what caught their attention in this exercise, or what surprised you or what stood out, just have one. We're just going to do one share, but we have time for one share in this program. So anybody want to share what came up for them when they were doing this exercise? Alessandra, you were in the top 10 percentile. Tomorrow is your middle name. Do you want to? Can you unmute and talk a little bit about?
Oh man, I nailed it.
Was this a test you wanted to win?
I love this quiz because it was shame free. The way that you framed it out, I'm not over here like all crestfallen. So thank you so much for pulling us into the thinking about it in a way that's not cloaked in shame. I really appreciate that. I'm just really, really struggling in the midst of a lot of successes. But oh my God, I'm stuck. So thank you for having this time. I appreciate it.
Well, I can't wait to for the next couple slides and you're going to really, really appreciate a slide that's coming up in about 4 more slides. You'll know which one it is.
All right, so let me get up the slides again here. There we go. All right, Deborah, going to talk us about stressors.
Yeah. So procrastination doesn't just happen. It's not a random behavior. It's our response to stressors. Those are demands that take us out of our comfort zone. So by procrastinating, we avoid facing the stressors that make us feel bad, that make us feel uncertain, insecure, fearful, whatever. The research literature in social and behavioral sciences define 3 kinds of stressors. There are challenge stressors. That's the first kind of stressor. And it's related to workload, responsibility, or job complexity. In other words, you have a lot to do. The weight of responsibility falls on your shoulders. The tasks have a lot of moving parts. It's complicated. And you may have too little time to do it all in. The upside of challenge stressors is that they can be good for you. They can be motivating. Often they're not. Hindrance stressors is a second kind of stressor, and it's associated with what I call hitting a brick wall. You have role ambiguity, role conflict, a lot of red tape, or they're just simply barriers to being productive or doing what you need to do. It's unclear who's responsible for doing what when. You're faced with inconsistent or incompatible demands. You're pulled in a billion different directions. There's a lot of red tape and external hoops to jump through to get anything done. And you may be plagued with interruptions and distractions, or insufficient or poor equipment and systems by which to do the task you're assigned or that you've taken on. Threat stressors is the third kind of stressor, and it's about future personal harm or loss. And this kind of threat, this threat stressor jeopardizes your sense of psychological need for belonging, your sense of trust in others, and your self-worth. And threat stressors include bullying and harassment, abuse of supervision, job insecurity, a lack of influence, or feeling like you have to hide your true thoughts and feelings. So the problem when we talk about how to crush procrastination is that too many people focus exclusively on motivation, on personal motivation, and overlook other factors that may be driving them into procrastination.
Deborah, one of the questions came in, which I think is good, is to know that the question was about, are all these external stressors, or can these stressors be internal?
Oh, absolutely. Stressors can be internal because, in fact, the stressors can be external, but it's what you do with them internally that makes all the difference in the world. And we'll cover some of that. I mean, that's the purpose of this workshop, and we'll cover some of it today.
Right. So we're going to do an assessment right now. You're going to take an assessment where we're going to go through these challenge stressors and hindrance stressors and threat stressors, and you're going to get a little better idea of which ones fit your mode of stress. And again, yes, this is how you react to the stressors. So the stressors are, I guess you could say, are neither good or bad. They're how you react to them. And so I'm going to put in the chat here the link to the self-assessment. And so go ahead and click on that link. We're going to give you a 4 minutes here to do that self-assessment. And let me put a little bit of music on here while you go ahead and do that. There's a place to put your email in there. That's going to be where you get these results that we send to you, and you can add that. I keep a self-assessment folder in my notate, my second brain with all these assessments that you get to do, and this will give you another one to put into that. Joined us. So we're just doing this self-assessment right here. And Tony, you just joined us. Welcome, Tony. One more minute we'll give you.
Okay, I don't know where Glenn is. So
I'm here. You can hear me, right?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, yeah, we still have a little bit more time here.
Oh, okay, I get it. Okay.
All right, is that everyone finishing up? If you need more time, just raise your hand or raise your virtual hand. I can give you a little bit more time. Okay. A little more time here. All right. So does anybody want to share what caught your attention, what stood out, what surprised you when you were doing that, the stressor self-assessment? You can unmute yourself or raise your hand.
Yeah.
Ken,
I
go
think
ahead.
for me, it was just nice having these kind of external prompts to cause me to reflect, whether it was, the whatever, the 3-level rating, or whatever it was, the place where you give more details. Again, kind of like the quiz, it causes you to reflect, because I mean, if you ask anybody about their procrastination thing, they'll probably ramble something out. And so to have the kind of this external scaffolding to kind of measure it on, a little bit like what Alessandra said, like it removes any shaming from it. It just becomes like it kind of just neutralizes, like, oh, this is just data. And you just realize, oh yeah, other people experience this too. Like obviously, it's like, I don't know if where you two got all this information to make this quiz, or you just obviously didn't just pull it out of a hat. Yeah. So I guess it kind of it normalizes some of the feelings you may have around it a bit.
I like to tease students. I say, I'm sorry to tell you, you're not all that special. Everybody struggles with these issues. Some people struggle a little, some people struggle a lot. But as you said, it's part of the normal human life, kind of interaction.
Well, and I would say too, I guess it depends on day to day, like what is going on in your life. So, if everything is going well, you're probably like, procrastination, what the heck is that? That's something I maybe do on the weekends if I'm feeling bored. But if you're like this, whatever, you've had some very difficult situations arise in your life, then yeah, it can almost feel perhaps even overwhelming. So
Yeah, I think that's a really great reflection, and that's something we're going to dig in here deeper. That you don't procrastinate all the time for everything. Some things you do and some things you don't, and like you said, the circumstances could change. And what I like about this assessment is it kind of helps you zero in a little bit more on, oh, this is the area that really affects me, and that gives you a little more awareness. So that way, when that happens, you can begin to manage your nervous system, which is what we're going to go into now, to be able to get yourself out of that state. Any other thoughts, Deborah, did you have?
No, I'm excited to go on.
Anybody else want to share?
Actually doing the exercise was a good example of what I find so frustrating. You had to sign in with your Google account. I didn't want to use the account that I was already signed in, so I had to switch accounts. And when I switched accounts, I had to do 2-step verification, which meant that I had to grab my phone so I could get verified. So we're now 5 minutes into the exercise, and I haven't even been able to log on yet.
Yeah.
And when I hit those kinds of roadblocks, I get to the point where it's like, oh, forget this. I can go I can go do something else right now. So
yeah. And that's the key part of behavior design is, when we're looking at how do we reduce the friction for things we want to do, and how do we put friction into things where we don't want to do. And that's a key piece of it.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's a great example of a hindrance stressor. And so we'll take that into account in the future too. Thanks for helping us get better.
Okay, let me bring back up the deck and have Deborah go look at what root cause analysis means. Root cause analysis.
Okay, so before we go on, I do want to say something about root cause analysis because it's infiltrated our thinking about how to solve problems in virtually all areas of our lives. But it's not necessarily the only or the best way to approach the problem of procrastination. So too often, when we want to challenge our procrastination behaviors, the tasks we drag our feet on aren't actually the source of the problem. We usually don't recognize, appreciate, or consider factors that may not be intrinsically associated with the problem. And most importantly, root cause analysis doesn't take advantage of what we call the law that no one is perfect. And so here's what I mean by that. And this is profoundly important to appreciate. And we invite you to embrace this notion fully. And for Alessandra, I think Ken already mentioned about not shaming. I think you'll love this. And everybody else, we really want to emphasize this principle. No one is perfect. And that means that you don't even do your problem perfectly. What we mean by this in the case of procrastination is you don't procrastinate on everything all the time to the same degree and in the same setting. There are times, and maybe lots of times, where you do manage to get hard, annoying, boring, tedious tasks done on time and in a way that isn't a last-minute scramble. And that's where you find what I think of as the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow for behavior change. Looking at where things are already working, where the problem isn't as bad as it could have been, or when problems actually could have occurred and didn't. So right now, think of something that you routinely procrastinate on doing. And start with the worst it's been. And it can be something super simple, like, putting your shoes in the closet when you take them off, anything. Start with the worst it's been. And now think about all the times when you didn't procrastinate as much as you could have. What did you do to keep things from being as bad as they could have? What did you do to keep from procrastinating as much as you did when it's the worst of procrastination times? Now think about a time, maybe only once, when you didn't procrastinate at all. Or you procrastinated so little that it barely made any difference at all. Then ask yourself, how did you manage to do that? So executing on the principle of no one's perfect and no one even does their problem perfectly means looking for exceptions. Those times when the problem didn't happen at all or as much as it did, or instances, times when you got the task done right away from the start. So let's now turn to what's going on in the nervous system when you procrastinate and what can you do about it. So we said at the start of the workshop that everything we do from the moment we're born to the moment we die is a function of what's happening in our nervous system. And that nervous system operates 24/7 to process, interpret, and control our actions in response to stimuli. And as it developed through evolution, our nervous system's first purpose was to ensure our survival, both individually and as a species. So that means we're hardwired to eat, to sleep, and to reproduce. Our capacity to think, interpret, and make decisions evolved much later as our nervous system, including our brains, evolved and developed into the human modern form we have now. So a fundamental part of the job of the nervous system is to keep us safe by enabling us to pick up on cues and alerting us to danger. So we experience cues as emotions, fear, disgust, anger, happiness, sadness, surprise, and an almost infinite variation on all of those. And the emotional cues can be subtle, like when you walk down a dark street at night and you get that uh-oh feeling. That's your nervous system at work. It's vigilant and it never takes a break. And not only that, but the primitive part of the brain that alerts us to danger is many, many times faster than the thinking part of the brain, which is why emotions often win over reasonable thought. Anybody lost their temper lately or stubbed a toe and shouted out something that, maybe they shouldn't have shouted out while the kids were around? So obviously, emotions don't only function to keep us safe, they prepare us for all kinds of behavior, attention, learning, memory, goal choice, motor behaviors, and behavioral decision making. So when we're operating at our best, we're in our comfort zone, an optimal state in which we're able to take effective action to fulfill the needs of the situation. So to help,
that's what Ken was saying before. When everything's perfect, you're in that optimal state.
Yep, that's right. So to help illustrate how the nervous system functions in the face of either calm or stress, let's look at a model developed by Dan Siegel, a clinical professor of psychiatry at UCLA School of Medicine. And this is called the window of tolerance, and it describes the optimal zone of arousal for when a person can function in everyday life. So when a person is operating within this zone or the window of tolerance, they can effectively manage and cope with all the emotions that come up throughout the day and their activities and respond to the demands and stresses of everyday life without much difficulty. And it's the comfort zone in which you're able to self-soothe and self-regulate your emotional state so that if you have an intense emotional arousal, you can process it in a healthy way and you can function and react to the stress or anxiety effectively. So when you're in your window of tolerance, your comfort zone, you feel that sense of balanced state of mind, you're calm, you're grounded, you're relaxed, you're in control, you're able to function most effectively and to take on challenges that life throws at you.
And when, from a little meta perspective, when we started this workshop today, we did some breathing exercises, and the idea was to get us into this zone of tolerance, comfort zone.
So within your window of tolerance, you respond easily and freely to what's going on in your life. And in this model, there are ups and downs in life. So in this model, the calm activation zone says, ready for action. Your heart speeds up, your muscles are ready for action, you're alert, you're able to think clearly, you make decisions and respond effectively. And then, off that high comes the calm deactivation zone, which is, I think of as it's the settle down time. Your heart slows down, your muscles relax, you're able to feel calm, think clearly, and relax. So here's the full model. We showed you just the comfort zone, the window of tolerance. But you can see here in this full model, when we're in our window of tolerance, the blue zone, it's smooth sailing. We're cruising along in life just fine, managing the ups and downs that come our way. But when our brain perceives a situation as threatening, an emotional response is triggered to preserve our well-being. So this is true regardless of the stressor, whether it's a challenge stressor, whether you're overwhelmed with too much to do, or you're stymied by a hindrance stressor with barriers that stand in your way of productivity, like the two-step authentication, or threat stressors in the form of a toxic work environment. So in these moments, our adaptive defense responses kick in, and we either fight, flight, or freeze. And it could take the form of procrastination. So our brain is protecting us against the negative feelings, and it's propelling us to seek safety. And I want to inject the idea, besides, in addition to the no one's perfect, you don't even do your problems perfectly, is that all behavior is purposeful. So when you find yourself doing stuff that, you think, I shouldn't be doing, you're beating yourself up, step back, be kind to yourself, and recognize that all behavior has a purpose. It may look like the goofiest, dopiest thing to do, but it's protecting you. And your nervous system can be very wise. At the same time, sometimes we need to manage it because the nervous system, if it perceives threat, can work much faster than our thinking brain that says, wait a second, that's not such a threat. I can do that. So for instance, when it comes to doing tax returns that make us feel anxious or playing Candy Crush, what do you think comes first or what wins? Well, immediate pleasure wins every time, even when the delay of procrastination can cost us literally and figuratively. So how does dysregulation and the hyper or hypoarousal show up in terms of procrastination? So I'm sorry, Glenn, do you mind going back just very quickly?
Sure.
I'm sorry that I missed that on this slide. So the two ways when we're out of our comfort zone, our window of tolerance, there are two ways to go. Either we get hyper aroused, that surge of energy, the fight or flee, or we get hypo aroused. We collapse, we shut down, we just feel so defeated. And those are the two ways that we can get dysregulated out of our window of tolerance, our zone of comfort. Okay, thanks, Glenn.
Yeah.
So how does this dysregulation, the hyper or hypoarousal, show up in terms of procrastination? So here are a few examples. You flee by going out dancing and playing sports with friends. That's hyper aroused. I can't deal with it. Let me go do something. And it's very energetic. At the same time, you just may feel so overwhelmed or defeated that you freeze by zoning out in front of the TV with the latest streaming episodes. And I was just wondering, as I was thinking about this, as video gaming, fight, flight, or flee, I think it's very energizing. You have to really be on your toes. So that's an example of what we do and how procrastination shows up. So
what do we do about that? Let's jump to there because our time is.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So then the goal is, how do we manage arousal and expand our window of tolerance? So although the ancient part of the brain works on automatic, the more modern part of the nervous system can help you come back into your window of tolerance and even expand it. So I'll give you a simple example. In my case, I often put off doing the dishes. And what I discovered is that if I'm reading, which is a pretty calming activity, I could even be doing research, which is a little more energizing, but then I go down to the kitchen and I say, oh, the dishes, I am not motivated at all, and I put them off. But I notice that if I exercise, or when I exercise and go then into the kitchen, I'm very pumped, I'm energized, and I think of the dishes, oh, I can do those, no problem. And so that's just one example of that difference between being in my comfort zone or feeling defeated or energized. So if you're noticing like, oh, I just can't do it, I can't handle it, how do you increase your arousal and also then come into your out of hypoarousal, but into your zone of comfort. So anything that stimulates the senses and brings you into the present, feeling grounded and safe. It could be movement, it could be vigorous exercise. I gave you an example of that. Using essential oils. There's one person said chewing crunchy food, playing music, drinking some cold water, anything that brings you more alive in the present moment can help you expand that window of tolerance and bring more energy into action. And
I like to say too, you don't need energy to get going. You get going to get energy, and that I think that is a key point. And we do some breathing exercises, which really effectively go to your nervous system. And you can do the same types of breathing exercises, but without having to actually do the exercise, just getting moving changes the breath. And that's another key point to it. So I do want to move on to the Q&A, Deborah, if any other final thoughts here till we move over there.
Yeah, I think that after this, we can share with you some other ways to come into that window of tolerance, either energizing yourself or calming yourself down. So we'll make those available to you.
Yeah. We have a whole list. So yeah, we can put those in our follow-up here. And so that I want to open up to questions. And Ethan, you have a really good question here on the window of tolerance and these arousal strategies. Did you want to unmute and ask that question?
Absolutely. So it the strategies that Dr. Deborah was just sharing seemed like they were changing the level of arousal itself. So changing the level of arousal to kind of get into your window of tolerance. And I was wondering how that relates to actually expanding the window of tolerance so that a given level of arousal is within it, if that makes sense. So how do we actually expand the window itself rather than just changing the level of arousal to fit into it?
That's a great question. And I think it takes a longer answer, but here's a key, is that the more flexibly you can manage your nervous system, the more that when stress comes, you don't flip out and collapse. You go, oh, I noticed this. It's about noticing, going, oh, I'll just take a breath. Because that's a very simple, I hope elegantly effective and efficient answer. Short answer in a short amount of time.
Thank you.
So we have another question from Lad, I think. I'm sorry, can't quite get the name from the chat, but it says, is the ability to energize or calm yourself fall under resilience?
Wow, I love that question. Absolutely. That's a tool for building resistance, your capacity to manage whatever's thrown at you. Absolutely.
Yeah, and like we said before, what's thrown at you, this stress, is you can have a stress is enhancing mindset or a stress is debilitating mindset, and then no matter what the stressor is, whether it's a challenge, a hindrance, or a threat stressor, that it's how you perceive it. And if you perceive it as a stress is enhancing mindset, where you're able to say, oh no, I got this is coming at me. And I think, as Ken said, on days when you're at your best, you can be more in a stress is enhancing mindset, and on days when you might be struggling, you might fall into more of a stress is debilitating mindset. So it's like not like forever everything that this kind of mindset works. It's conditional too as well. Did you have some thoughts, Deborah, on that? Yeah, that's a question about.
Yeah, it's all up to your appraisal. And that doesn't mean that you're singing, dancing through the tulips when really terrible stuff happens. It means that you are able to manage it and deal with it in a healthy, productive way.
Sandra, go ahead. You had your hand up.
So going back to what Ethan was saying about widening that window of tolerance or lessening the stimuli that is within that, building resilience. What I've been doing with, I lost my my classical music career to stage fright. And so years later, now I'm coming back. And so this literature about the growth mindset and how can we have incrementally more stressful constraints on our performance is what I've been after. So in order to play in real life in front of someone, I knew I was going to have to play in a room like this with someone, but who was that going to be? So I made sure that it was someone really safe. So I felt like I belonged. And even if I mucked the whole thing up, that we'd have a good laugh and I would try again another time. But building the resilience is how I've gotten a crane in there, hold that window wider open.
It's,
Does that make,
sounds
does that make sense?
Yeah. So what I hear is
Absolutely.
like you're moving, you're putting yourself in that stressful situation on a small scale to test your resilience and say, oh yeah, I can get myself back into the window of tolerance here. I can do this. Okay, let me get myself a little more stressed so I can put myself in that window of tolerance. I like those activities. Even one of mine is I do the cold shower at the end of my shower, just to bring my nervous system back. It's obviously going to spike into the hyperarousal, and to breathe back in, and just to practice that window of tolerance. And I think that's a way of being for all your activities, is to put yourself out of that comfort zone a bit.
Yeah. And there's one other thing that occurs to me, and we go into that more in the course that we'd like to tell you about, and that is your sense of purpose. And more, there's things that are immediate, the cold shower, the micro dosing, etc. And then there's a kind of macro level. It has to do with who are you in the world, and who do you want to be? How do you want to be seen? What do you want to offer the world? That's a whole different conversation, but I just want to put that seed out there.
So I want to get to both Ken and Ashley here while we still have some time. Ken, you want to go ahead? And we'll take Ashley.
Sure.
We'll wrap
Yeah,
up.
thanks, Glenn. My questions may be pretty quick. I can't remember. There's a slide that you used to share in some other sessions I take with you, and I think it's like kind of being in this state of flow, and it was kind of a graph with an angle. But then there was the up above. It was like it's getting too challenging. But then the interesting part was down below. I'm getting bored. And so I was like, I guess what I'm kind of getting at is like, well, also, where does boredom like kind of fit into all of this? We're kind of talking about getting out of your window of tolerance and being too stressed, so thus you procrastinate, or the real extreme, you have the hyperarousal or the hypoarousal. But I guess I'm also kind of just like, how does like being maybe understimulated is the wrong word, but like it's not challenging enough. Like, how does boredom kind of play into this?
Yeah, that's a challenge skill balance, and you said it just right. When the skill challenge is too high, you're in that anxiety stress mode, and then when it's too low, you get into that boredom mode. That's the hyper and hypoarousal too as well. Deborah, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a tricky one, because I've been playing a little bit with boredom. I mean, boredom sometimes is as an adaptive defense response. You've got something hard to do. It's too boring. At the same time, some things just aren't that interesting. I think it's, for me, I've been playing with it because I have a grandson who's just 1.5 years, and he can take blocks, put them in the basket, dump the basket out, put all blocks in one at a time. He can do it for so long. And I noticed that I was fascinated this time with how he did that. I was very much in the present moment. I wasn't bored at all, but I do remember being bored in years past when it was his father who was doing that. It's like, all right, can't we do more? So I think there are a lot of layers to it. And so, yeah, that's all I can say. And I think some of it may be, how present are you at the moment? How deep are you going, being in that present moment? And then there is just some stuff is boring.
Yeah.
You have other things you want to do. Yeah.
I like to pair it with my guilty pleasures. If I have to do something boring, I'll put on my guilty pleasure TV show and do that within the background. Ashley, real quick, we can get you in there, and we'll wrap up here.
I was just going to say quickly, when I heard the question about the window of tolerance and when relating it to like resilience, and how, the more we become resilient, the more that window of tolerance would open, because we're practicing the skills, which are making us more readily available to access them. So our window of tolerance for these, states are easier to manage. And, also I was just thinking about, when it comes to our perception of situations, because I know a lot of times with me, it's not so much the task itself, it's how I'm looking or perceiving the task.
Yes.
And then, how much of that, and, maybe working on like changing of the thinking, to kind of like, so that you're not looking at the task. And so you could bring in that windows of tolerance, how does that affect with procrastination.
Exactly. So much is how we look at things.
Thank you, everyone. We wanted to just highlight our program that we're going to have coming up here in February, and it's getting things done without procrastinating. And it's a lot more of what we talked about today, how to wire your brain for on-time performance. And what you'll see is we're going to go into 2 rules and strategies that are critical for shifting from a procrastinator's mindset to a get it done on time mindset, pretty much some of the things we were just chatting about. And White SMART goals, second brain processes and tools, time management systems aren't enough to overcome procrastination, how to maximize the power of the 4 keys factors that must be present to maximize on-time success. This is our behavior design model that we developed that we're going to be getting into, and how you can really use that to work through procrastination challenges. And the crucial role play and fun, even when the stakes are high and deadlines are looming. The session will take place on we have the 4 modules here that you can look at. I just put the link in the chat, and it'll be over 2 weeks, Tuesday and Thursday, for those 2 weeks. And we have some videos that you'll be able to watch ahead of time for each session that will give you, so we can really get deep into working with you on your individual procrastination challenges, and we'll allow those to be much more deep in the workshop and get you some of the learnings in the videos. And we're looking forward to this session. We spent a year working on this, and we're really excited to be able to finally get this out to everyone, and it really helped with getting things done on time. Deborah, is there anything you wanted to add?
I think that one thing we've talked about safety, we've talked about, not shaming, and that is really the bedrock of our approach. We're not going to ask you to do a root cause analysis on your procrastination. This is very person-centered and strength-based and comprehensive, where we do look at all of the various factors, the people, places, things, what's internal to you, to help you create a solid roadmap for on-time performance.
Thank you. And we're going to be we have a discount code for everyone who attended this workshop, and that's going to expire on the end of the month here on the 31st. And so if you have an opportunity to and want to sign up early, you can get that 15% discount. Even if you don't, there is the ability to get stay in the loop on this. We're doing this course now on the Maven platform, and we get listed in the Maven platform when we have 2 people sign up or 10 people sign up for the get updates. So even if you don't sign up right away, if you sign up for the updates, that'll help get us more exposure into the program. And so we're happy to take any more questions on that. And I just wanted to wrap up with how I like to wrap up these sessions, and Deborah and I like to, is what's one word you use to describe today's session? Oh, that's actually the second one. Let's actually start with this one. Actually, the first one is, what's one thing you heard yourself think or say during today's session? What's one thing you heard yourself think or say? This helps connect all the things that you learned today. What's one thing you heard yourself think or say during today's session? Go ahead and enter it in the chat. One thing you heard yourself think or say. Wasted trauma work you're doing, adaption. Oh, I'm not alone. Yes.
For sure. Yeah, Ken, you're not all that special. Up to fully 20% of Americans struggle with severe procrastination.
I wonder how the excuse maker fits into this model. That's something we'll be able to talk more about in the course. And yeah, anything we didn't cover here, feel free to hit us with these questions, and we'll be able to get back to you. It's something that can be understood and managed. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And so then again, like I said, one word you use to describe today's session, if you want to add that up, and then we would thank you for your time. Oops, one word to describe today's session. Realistic, I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Light at the end of the tunnel. Shame reducing. I really like that theme.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it. And again, if you want to go deeper, check out our course, and also check out our site, BeYourOwnBestCoach.com, for more resources. And we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.